Hello everybody, welcome back, and welcome to episode number 2 of Moving Forward, where I'm going to discuss the genius of Eddie Van Halen and Hot Teacher. Eddie being arguably the best rock and roll guitar player thus far. We're going to get into what I learned from the experience of learning Hot Teacher. Obviously, or maybe not so obviously, it's a song that goes back several years for me, or for me, if, like me, you played guitar in the 80s, you have probably played some of these riffs before. But we're going to talk about the song, and unlike episode number 1, it's going to be more about technique. Because as you may know, Eddie didn't focus a whole lot on the theory side of stuff, and he just played, and what sounded good and what felt good turned out to be really good. So let's get into it by discussing the intro. And of course, now that I've just said that, we'll talk about theory. But that tapping intro that starts the song, the famous tapping intro, those are all arpeggios. And the first two are A minor, that A, E, C, another A. Then he shifts up, keeping the A's, both octaves, to a D and an F sharp, which of course makes it a D major chord. So he's got A minor to D major. And then he shifts up the next string, keeping the same shapes on the next two strings. So this is D minor, D, A, F, low D. And then he shifts up to G and B. So now we have D, G, and B, which is a G major. So D minor to G major. And then on the G string, the last set of two chords, or arpeggios, we got a D, pull off to D, pull off to B flat, pull off to that open G again. So G, B flat, D is a G minor. And then he shifts that up to include the C and the E. So now you have G, E, C, and the low G, which is a C major. So the chord progression for the intro is A minor, D major, D minor, to G major, G minor, to C major. And the reason I'm bringing that up, there's a couple reasons actually. You could play around with these shapes, and guitar is an instrument like most where shapes repeat, and you can move them around the fretboard. And so if I move this fretted third note here on the A string, for example, up one fret, this arpeggio becomes major. It goes from A minor to A major. So you get that sound. Instead of... And we could turn this D major by dropping this F sharp, the major third, down a half step to F, the minor third. So you can use these types of things for springboards on your own creative journeys, like I did in the intro song, which is why that's there. I took that progression from the intro, built that riff off of it, and then I also built some arpeggios, different fingerings for the same arpeggios, excuse me. So we still have A minor to D, but I'm playing it here. There's the A minor to the D. I forget, what was the pattern? and then D minor to G, and then G minor to C. And then I ended on that A minor tapping lick. And I'm just, when I get to the 5th position, I'm descending down the pentatonic scale, tapping an octave higher. So, I wanted to bring that up because you can take songs that you're learning, or pieces that you're learning, parts that you're learning, and be creative with them. If you're stuck in a rut, use a song you enjoy or like to come up with your own thing. So that was the arpeggio part of it. But the riff was based off this A minor chord to the D, D minor, G, I did a slide up and back, and then the G minor to C, which is half measure instead of the whole measure that the other chords enjoy. G minor to C. Ending on the A minor with a blues lick or a pentatonic. And then before I get to that, let's finish up this thought. Let's talk about the technique of the tapping. We'll move away from theory for a second. He ends the tapping intro with this descending. And this goes to the point that I was making earlier, which was Eddie didn't think too much about theory, and you can tell here is a prime example because this is just a symmetrical descending shape. It's all on the 5th, 7th, and 8th frets of each string, tapping on the 12th. Now, if we were in the key of A minor, A blues, which, given that the rest of the song is, you could say that the first 3 strings are doable, are in the, friendly at least. You got the B, which is the 2nd or the 9. That's fine, that works. You got F sharp, which is major 6. Call it Dorian, like we discussed in Moving Forward number 1. Got the E flat, which you can say, hey, that's flat 5. But here, the hell is that? That's a minor 2nd. It's a B flat. Not in this key, but it doesn't matter because if it sounds good, it is good, and that's Eddie proving that right there. Here is F, E, and D. That's fine. That's diatonic to A minor. So it's really this minor 2nd here. So if it sounds good, it is good. Let's talk a little bit more about the technique that he employs when descending, and that's this hammer from nowhere idea when going down to the next string. No pick, no tap. It's the tap with the right hand. It's the tap with the left hand. It's a really good tool to have in your toolbox. It makes it easier, at least for me, when descending. Okay, so that's the tapping technique that I wanted to point out. That hammer on from nowhere. In this case, the lick was here. He also starts the solo with that lick. All right, moving on. Mainly, I just wanted to point out real quick this hybrid technique that he's using, the pick and the fingers. I love this technique. It's very useful in my playing, and that's kind of why I wrote that second riff and the opening theme, whatever you want to call it, just to use that technique in a creative way. There, I'm still using hybrid even though it's a lead line. And that ending lick, even though it's not in Hot for Teacher, is borrowed from Eddie as well. If you think about I'm the One, that's kind of a similar idea. So that's a great technique to employ. You can get a lot of those country-ish chicken picking sounds or blues licks. Or just, you know, riff ideas. So, hybrid. That's good stuff there. Let's move on. What are we going to talk about next? The verse is pretty much the heavy version of what we just covered, right? Moves through the D and G chords. But now we have the solo, which songwriting technique. The solo shifts keys, and the band goes to F sharp minor blues, whatever you want to call it, and it starts with the same tapping lick like I mentioned, but that first note he hits, bending up to the 5 there, and the whole solo is basically outside a minor pentatonic and minor blues, F sharp minor blues, or blues, same thing, with the exception of when he's doing that descending line to get up to the higher octave, and then he employs the 9 here again in the flat 5 in and around the pentatonic shape. Told you those were cool. Hanging stuff on the pentatonic shape. But, so what do we have? There's that ascending thing. Cool line. And perfect opportunity to take licks that you enjoy, you know, turn them into exercises. It's what I had to do for a couple of these licks in this solo. Admittedly, in all of my pentatonic playing, I didn't bend up to the 4 a lot, you know, which is that first finger bend. Just because it's the first finger, I don't use it to bend a lot, and it shows how stuck in patterns we get as guitar players. Another first finger bend right here. Little slide off that bend, important. Little things too, I would pick up on, and it's cool and fun, at least to me, to dig into the little stuff. Like that descending line there, it's all staccato, or they have rest after each note. There are rest after each note, with the exception of the C sharp, the E, and the C sharp right here. And this is really cool. This rest after pulling off from the A to the F sharp. That's just, and that's the thing about this solo, even though he's just blazing pentatonics, it's got so much groove, and that's, I think, probably the most important thing to take away from learning a solo like this is that every lick just fits right in there. You know, they may not be the cleanest shredding licks, but who cares? They got soul and groove, and that's really, in my book, all that really matters. I'll tell you what gave me a lot of trouble was the ending part where it's after this. Let's see if I get there. That lick right there. So cool. But has to be right in there. And still, I'll probably work on that, you know, as long as I remember to do so. But I think it's a cool lick to work on. And if you don't know, those unison bends. On a floating bridge, you have to kind of compensate by pushing up that first finger too, because that'll go flat on you. So anyway, that's the solo. What else? What else can I tell you about Hot for Teacher? It's a cool flippin' song, and Eddie's the best. We know that. There's so much to learn from him. Groove and feel, tone. Probably the biggest takeaways, you know, in studying this stuff, so that we can hopefully forget it when we play and just, you know, absorb a little bit of that magic. So, yeah. Until next time, we have moved forward.